There are a lot of really strong champions for League of Legends at the moment, but few are harder to deal with than Mordekaiser. Due to his raw ability to win pretty much any 1v1 and even any 1v2, Mordekaiser is a very overbearing pick at the moment. His 1v9 potential is better than any other solo laner in the entire game, so today we're going to be going over exactly how you can be abusing Mordekaiser and what you should be doing if you are playing against him. Remember that the preseason is the best time for learning and improvement, so if you haven't already, then make sure to go check out our website, GameLeap.com. Over at our website, we've got hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We've got courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to go check it out using the link in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get right into Mordekaiser, and the first thing that you can do to ensure success is, believe it or not, pick Mordekaiser if he's up. If the enemy team does not ban Mordekaiser and they don't pick it, then you should definitely be taking that off the table because it is good into pretty much anything, and it's extremely safe as a blind pick. Mordekaiser has very few counters, namely Olaf and GP, so if those two champions are off the table, Olaf is a very common ban, and GP isn't played all that much, then Mordekaiser is going to be fantastic. Now you might be worried that you're not a Mordekaiser main, so you don't want to be picking the champion, but don't worry. Mordekaiser is a very simple champion. He's easy to play, and it's only going to take you a few games to learn him, so I highly recommend hopping into norms and grabbing Mordekaiser for about 10 games in a row so you can really grasp the champion and take it right into ranked. Now, once you do load into Summoner's Rift, the first thing that you want to keep in mind as Mordekaiser is your early game is not especially strong. Your level 1 is okay, but you're not going to beat a lot of champions like Darius, Olaf, or Trundle. So play level 1 pretty safe and just allow yourself to get levels and get to level 6 before you really start pressuring the enemy champion. Now, if you're playing against something that has a terrible level 1, then you can trade at level 1. This would be something like Nasus, or Ornn, or Maokai. If you do go for this, you have to remember the number 1 rule of early trades, and that is to eliminate the melee minions before you go for the trade. This will allow minion damage to equalize. You won't be taking an absurd amount of minion damage while they take none. Usually you want to look for something pretty short, just to trigger your passive and then back away. You really don't have kill pressure until you get more levels unless somebody is just taking a 100-0 fight against you, which is pretty much never going to happen. Personally, I don't take trades until I have all 3 of my basic abilities learned. This is because if the trade goes poorly and I don't have W learned yet, then I'm going to be losing a lot more health. In most matchups, you're going to be winning once you hit level 6 anyways, so there's really no rush to be forcing any fighting to happen. You just want to be focusing on CS, which is going to be really easy, especially since Mordekaiser's abilities don't cost any mana, so you can just use them off of cooldown. If the enemy does misstep or they play too aggressive and allow you to trigger your passive and fully stacked Conqueror for free, then you can look for a kill, but other than that, there's no need to play aggressive. You're going to want to look to play passive until you get your first base and level 6, in which case you will start playing a lot more aggressive and building an advantage. Now, on Mordekaiser, it is very important that you always get boots on your first base. This is because when you trigger your passive, it gives you a percentage move speed buff, and boots give you flat movement speed, which means when you have boots plus that percentage move speed buff, you're going to be very fast and pretty much impossible to kite. You can extend a trade for as long as you want. It is for this reason that Mordekaiser absolutely adores long lanes. And how do we create the longest lane possible? By freezing. If you're holding a freeze and you land 1 or 2 Qs on the enemy laner and they're sitting around 3/4 HP, you can just ult them, hit them with a Q, auto them twice, and kill them in your ultimate. Most people, when you ult them as Mordekaiser, are going to walk immediately back towards their tower and they're going to get stuck on your wall. This will allow you to hit your Q and E for free, and even if you don't kill them in the Death Realm, once they pop out, they're going to be around 1/4 HP or less. You can quickly finish them off once you pop out of the Death Realm. You'll be able to quickly push the wave with your passive and your Q. You'll crash it into the tower. This will start another freeze naturally, and then once your ultimate comes back up, you can do it all again. One thing that you really don't want to forget to do as Mordekaiser is you want to be hitting that tower while you still have the extra stats from whoever you killed in the Death Realm. It's going to give you more attack speed and a little bit more damage to the tower. This will allow you to get those juicy plates that you normally would not get if you were maintaining a freeze for the entire game. Now the last thing for the laning phase is in the cases where you're ganked and you have to 1v2 with your ultimate. There are two different things that you should look for when determining who you should be ulting. You see, most people just ult the easier target to 1v1, but this is oftentimes not what you should be doing. The first thing, of course, is you need to make sure that you can actually win the 1v1. There's no point in ulting somebody if you can't win the 1v1 against them. You're just going to die, and you're not going to even walk away with a kill. If you can beat both champions, though, you want to ult the champion with more stats who is going to take a more extended trade. Now, the first reason why you're ulting the more fed target is because the Death Realm steals 10% of that target's stats. You don't want to be stealing stats from somebody who doesn't have any. The second reason, however, is when you ult the more fed target, it's going to result in a longer fight, which will allow you to stack your W for even longer. You want to try to save your W for when you come out of the Death Realm to allow you to 1v1 the second target. Remember, if you can win the 1v1 in the Death Realm, you're going to be getting a Triumph proc, and you're going to have everything already stacked. The person is probably going to be sitting right on top of you when you pop out, so you don't have to worry about chasing them down, and then you can use your W shield in order to keep you alive while you kill the second person. If you ult the less fed person and you kill them too fast in the Death Realm, suddenly you're not going to be getting nearly as much of a shield from your W. You might not have the time to fully stack it, and you might not be able to win that second fight, especially since they're the more fed player. So frequently, I'll see Mordekaisers abduct the easiest player to kill into their Death Realm. This is not the point of your ult. Your ult should be used to isolate the biggest threat on the enemy team. Even if the biggest threat is something like a Fiora, something who's really good at dueling, Mordekaiser is still going to beat that. In fact, there's only a few champions that can duel Mordekaiser inside of his Death Realm. Now, when the mid and late game comes around, what should you be looking to do on Mordekaiser? As long as your team is even, the answer is always going to be to side lane. You're going to be able to draw two people into the side lane. Oftentimes, you're going to kill both of them, and then you're going to be able to get towers afterwards. Now, if your team is super far behind, then you might be forced to group, which is fine. Mordekaiser is good at grouping, but ideally, you're going to want to side lane. Only group for objectives like Dragon and Baron if you can. Lastly, what are the runes and build that you should go on Mordekaiser? Runes are very simple. You always want to go Conqueror, Triumph, Tenacity if you need it, otherwise Alacrity, and Last Stand. Do not go Coup de Grace, always go Last Stand. For secondary, you always want to go Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. Your sustain is absolutely absurd, and it's the thing that allows you to keep going in a fight, so you want your sustain to be as good as possible. So now that you know how to play Mordekaiser, what happens if you leave it unbanned and somebody picks it against you? Then what? Well, there are a few options, and the first one, of course, is to just dodge. If you don't want to play against Mordekaiser, you don't have to. You can just dodge. The second option, however, which is one that I really love, is to just pick something that can out-sustain and out-duel him in the Death Realm. Now, there are very few champions that can do this, but there are a few. First, of course, is Olaf. Now, this can duel him in the Death Realm, and if it can't, he can just ult and run away. This is going to be the best counterpick to Mordekaiser. The second one I did mention already, and that's going to be Gangplank. I don't recommend this one at all though. Gangplank's pretty hard to play. He's more of a coin flip champion, and he's not a great duelist. You're pretty much always just going to be using your oranges to get out of the Death Realm, and if those are on cooldown, you're pretty doomed. The third one is going to be Fiora. Now this one's more of a skill matchup. It's slightly favored to Mordekaiser, but if you can parry his ultimate, then you can beat him. If you fail to parry on his ultimate, you're probably going to die, but it is something that you can do on reaction. The last one, however, is my absolute favorite, and it's something that I guarantee you did not see coming at all. This is going to be Trundle. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Panther, Trundle as a Mordekaiser counterpick in the top lane? Are you crazy? Before we get too upset, just hear me out. Just like Mordekaiser, Trundle uses the new Conqueror insanely well. He stacks it really quickly, uses that extra AD really well, and once he has it fully stacked, the sustain he gets actually gets amped by his W. Trundle absolutely loves one-on-one full melee fights. When Mordekaiser abducts Trundle into the Shadow Realm, he's not stuck in there with Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser is stuck in there with him. Mordekaiser is going to steal 10% of your stats on Trundle, but guess what? You just get to steal those stats right back with your own ult. You're basically just playing tug of war with Trundle's stats in the Shadow Realm while you beat each other to the death. 9 times out of 10, Trundle's going to be the one coming out on top here. The items that you're going to be wanting for this are Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King, Spirit Visage, Titanic Hydra, and GA. You could also go a QSS into Mercurial Scimitar, but I really don't think you need it. You can just stay in the Death Realm with them, and as long as you don't waste your W before going into the Death Realm, you can come out on top. This is the hardest part about the matchup. Having the discipline to not use your W on Trundle before going into the Death Realm takes a lot of work. A lot of the time you're going to be using it out of habit to hit towers or to push away faster. You really need to not do this and only use your Q to be doing these things. You also want to make sure that you don't ult Mordekaiser until he takes you into the Death Realm. If you ult him first, again, you have a shot at losing the fight. In this matchup, whoever ults first usually loses. However, if neither of you ult, then Trundle will always win, meaning Mordekaiser is just forced to play safe. Now, it might take you a few games to learn this matchup, but once you do, I guarantee you're going to have just as much fun as I do, absolutely destroying Mordekaiser players. And you know what? If the enemy team isn't picking Mordekaiser, then you can just claim him for yourself. You probably won't play into Trundle, so you're going to be in the clear. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.